Hey everyone, welcome to the Human Cloud Podcast, the spot where executives, entrepreneurs, and investors come to drive the freelance economy forward. So, welcome back. We have been with you for over 100 episodes, to which at this point, we've met incredible people, we've learned incredible things, and I hate saying this, but I kind of have to for my team. We've become the number one global podcast on the freelance economy. Now, get ready for the next wave. We don't go by seasons. We're like Tesla. We're always updating to give you the best. We don't have version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4. We're always getting better. But the big change from the first 100 to the next 100 is we are going to be very, very intentional with you about what you are going to learn. And so it's still going to be informal in terms of it's still going to be like us individually having these conversations that we would have in their office, in a bar. We're giving you the conversation, we're democratizing the access to these conversations that we're so fortunate to have. But we're going to be a lot more intentional in terms of the learnings that we're going to make sure that you walk away with. And these learnings, most important, are going to be on the front lines of the freelance economy. So what we are not going to shy away from is we are freelance. We always put a slide of Winston Churchill that says, freelance is the worst term, except for those that have been tried. So freelance is good enough. Now, we've seen so many different terms, right? And we've seen liquid workforce, we've seen free agent and agent, we've seen the gig economy, there's open talent, there's so many terms. We think freelance is good enough. And so over the next 100 episodes, we're going to bring you the executives driving this change. We're going to bring you the entrepreneurs driving these change, specifically the founders of marketplaces and solutions. And we're going to bring you the investors, because where we are so fortunate at Human Cloud is we have visibility across all of this. So we sit as venture partners. We've invested in some of the leading marketplaces coming up right now. We've built some of the leading companies, both in enterprise settings and startup settings. And so we are giving you the largest database of insights to drive your freelance, whatever you want to call it, your program, your initiative, your company forward. So, you ready to kick off the next wave? This next guest is Steve Rader. Steve's a program manager over at NASA, specifically a program manager at the NASA Tournament Lab in the Center of Excellence for Collaborative Innovation. Now, one of the number one principles that John Younger has taught me is don't shy away from your strengths. Don't forget your strengths. So very intentionally, Steve, being the first guest of the next wave, is us not forgetting our strengths, which is someone like him driving groundbreaking innovation because of the freelance economy. So another slide I like to use, especially when outside of the US, is if you put a picture of NASA, then everyone will believe you. And we'll have in the show comments a link to NASA explicitly saying that the freelance economy is a sourcing strategy and channel you have to not be aware, but you have to actively invest in. So we're going to talk with Steve about everything. This is not just going to be, Steve, give us the Kool-Aid of what's so great about the freelance economy. This is going to be what's wrong with work. Why did the situation present itself to be able to even have a freelance economy? What's great about it? What's not so great about it? Where is it going? How can leaders be ready for it? We are going to hit soup to nuts, A to Z, everything about the freelance economy. So don't worry, the next 100 episodes, the intros won't be this long. We'll make sure we give you the context. But what we really want you to know is that you listeners, you are the heroes of the freelance economy. You are creating literally the best possible future of work. Whether you are scaling freelancers across your organization, we know you, Mina, we know you, Preston, you guys are doing God's work. Whether you're building the next wave of marketplaces, we see you, Shannon, and Pat, and Stephanie, and Unmari, you're doing, and Una, and Peter, all over the world, you're doing incredible things, or you're building the infrastructure. So whether you're Lee at Bupti, whether you're Colin and Morton and that whole roster over at WorkSum, or you're at Velocity, or People 2.0, or Greenlight, you name it. Y'all are doing God's work. And so those listening, keep it up, keep driving the freelance economy forward, and enjoy this episode, then go drive some change. Steve, welcome to the Human Cloud Pod. So, okay, this is where I've been wanting to have this convo for like 5 years, Steve. Maybe more, to be honest. I've read everything you've done. I've listened to everything you've done, and I've been just waiting for the opportunity to meet you. And so when John was like, "Hey, do you want me to set up a meeting with Steve?" I was like, "Yes, John. Yes, please, please, please." And so you have and this is the thing. Selfishly, I can ask you the questions that I wouldn't have time for if we were in a 30-minute meeting, right? So I know I got you for at least 45. But there's so much we're going to talk about, and I'm gonna let me preface this by saying, how do I say this? This is going to be the first of the bad dad jokes. The first question is, I want your opinion on the Chinese government. Just kidding. I just wanted to throw that zinger at you and say, haha. But no.
Yes.
So literally, can we just please start with your background, where you grew up, what your favorite food is? You know, I imagine you and I are going to align in our love for steak. I assume you're not going to tell me that, hey, you're vegan. Maybe you are, but I can't imagine. But
that's funny. I just had some leftover steak. So anyway,
I just had a feeling.
Well, let's see. Well, first, thanks for having me on. I always like talking with people in the space. So this is a thrill for me as well. Let's see. I grew up in a pretty large family. I had 4 brothers, so there were 5 boys, if you can imagine that. And I grew up overseas, over in Zambia for the first 10 years of my life, and then 1 year in South Africa. My parents were missionaries, and that was kind of an interesting way to grow up. Came back to Oklahoma, kind of started getting an interest in physics and engineering. And so when it came time to go to school, I basically went to Rice down here in Houston. And once I came to Houston, I kind of stayed. Got a mechanical engineering degree, and then realized that I could work at NASA, which up until then, I really felt that was reserved for PhDs and really smart people, which I didn't really think I was. So was really thrilled to get a job there and to be part of that. At NASA, I did a whole host of things over my career. I still work there. I've been there for 34 years. I've done mission control. I've done software development, communications architectures, worked on some really cool experimental vehicles, analog missions. And then over the last 10 years, I've been working at NASA's Center of Excellence for Collaborative Innovation that works open innovation for NASA and the whole federal government. And so that is my day job. I'm actually here in my side gig. So there's enough demand for this kind of stuff that I get to talk about it even in my spare time, which I enjoy doing. So everything I talk about today is not representing anybody from the government. It's just me. But that's kind of the short story. I have 3 girls. They're wonderful. They're all off in college or doing grad work, and have an amazing wife who was the lead trainer for the first space station crew, and is now a minister. So there's all sorts of interesting things there.
Steve, there's so much to talk about. Can we go back to my Chinese government question? Just kidding, but so okay, we're gonna get so nerdy about future of work, freelance economy, open innovation, open in talent. We're gonna get so nerdy about that. But you know what I kind of want to chat first about? So we talk a lot with overseas, whether EU, Asia, Middle East. I'm actually flying out to Saudi Arabia in 2 weeks. And so the presence of our industry is huge, right? But a lot of them, we hear something like, hey, we're going to come to the US. And we go, okay, where are you going? You going to New York? You going to Houston? You going to Georgia? You going to California? And so I got to ask you, I'll give you a little bit, my background, I started in manufacturing, and I had a similar feeling in getting into tech about, no, that's only MIT people are allowed to go into tech. And then I learned as long as you can show merit, then there's a place for you. But I wonder for you, how would you describe what it's been like growing up in the South, right? In the southern part of the US, yet how does this being so damn smart?
Well, what you find out is people really surprise you. There's a lot more intelligence around the world. It's you learn that your bias can really keep you from understanding really how amazing people are. And I mean, um, from my time in Africa, I saw so much ingenuity and innovation, and even in the South, in Oklahoma and Texas, it, there are really smart people everywhere, and it's actually one of the reasons I love open innovation, because you kind of get past all of the kind of gatekeepers that kind of make assumptions about what people's value is and what they bring to the table. And you suddenly have access to people with very novel thinking that you never would have expected. We find over and over, in my experience, when we've run challenges and stuff, that people who win this kind of stuff, you never would have hired. They never would have passed the interview. You would have looked at their resume and go, I don't think they have the answer. And I think culturally, we fall into that trap a lot around the South and the coast. And, people make assumptions about what people know and what they don't know. And what I find is, get to know people, ask questions, find out what's their secret sauce. Because when we make the assumptions, we're kind of playing into it, and they'll come off exactly as we perceive them, because we're not asking the questions, we're not curious. One of my favorite things to do is to kind of dig in with people that I don't know to find that amazing thing they've done that you didn't know. Like, you find people that, oh yeah, I was a professional singer once, or I was, the person that won the spelling bee, national spelling, like, people just surprise me over and over and over, to where I don't know why I'm still surprised. But anyway, it's really great.
It's I forget which it was a Gladwell book that talked about the research of something else, but it was basically, if you looked at the Ivy Leagues and you looked at the top schools, the deviation was tiny, right? Like most of them were all upper middle class, but then when you looked at the top 1%, it was all over the place, right? It was a Southerner who never went to school. It was someone, so it totally, and the question's always been, from a leadership perspective, is it worth the risk of taking on that crazy outsider? Meaning, can we lose the amount of money if they're not that good? So, okay, let's just settle at someone who's good enough. And then you end up having the same type of people. But, one of the things that you told John and I that I'll never forget was, you're reducing, so this is about getting product to market. And what you were saying was, it's reducing the burden of hiring by enabling thousands of people to have access to the same challenge that prior you would have had to hire just one person for because it was too expensive. I'll never forget when you told me that, Steve.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating. The whole open marketplace of open talent and open innovation. So crowdsourcing and freelancing, that's the other terms people use, right? It's a whole new way of tapping into human cognition, right? Human creativity. And it's something we know, right? We know that a team of people, at least if they're well performing, is always going to outperform an individual, because you're bringing different perspectives. And crowdsourcing and the access to lots of people, when mobilized correctly, can give you that on steroids. And we have this kind of myth that you can only get that when you bring people together in a full-time environment under one manager. Then they all have to be, indoctrinated to the culture, and then the magic happens. And what we're finding is that's just not true. Like, people, there is a barrier of kind of lubrication for people to start to work together, but it's not nearly as high as people think. And once we get over some of the bias, you can work with lots of different people in different ways, and especially when you have really good tools and good methods. And once you start to do that in the crowd environment with well-structured challenges, with interactive kind of hackathons and things like that, you can start to tap into something that's really amazing.
I love it. So, okay, there's two directions I want to go. You pick which way you want to go. So one direction is, I just want to hear from you, like, walk us through what your experience has been with this industry from day one, because a lot of people are like 2 to 5 years new, and we're
Yeah.
not, right? And so so that's one direction. So I just want to hear, imagine we were sitting at a bar. What would you tell me about back in my day / what
Yeah.
it's been like watching us grow? The second thing I want to hear, though, and this one's probably more tactical, so I would recommend starting with this. I think it's gonna be quicker. But what the hell is the difference between crowdsourcing and freelance, and how are they
Yeah.
similar and how are they different? Because I'll give you a little hint.
Sure.
When I was at Microsoft, I'll never forget that we got pitched crowdsourcing, right? And mind you, this was probably 6 months into me getting pounded by procurement about how we couldn't have any risk of looking like we had unethical sourcing practices. And so crowdsourcing came along and said, look at this incredible model. 3,000 people competed and only 2 people won. And they were proud of it. And we went, oh, no, that's never going to get past procurement. That sounds unethical. But then I've since, I've seen the beauty. But so you start with whichever one you want.
Well, let me start actually with the first one, and I'll feed into it because I think it's important, because my journey really started with open innovation. So in 2010, I read Jeff Howell's book called Crowdsourcing. And he was the Wired editor who kind of coined the term crowdsourcing. And when I put that book down, I realized everything had changed. Like, this new capability to access brains and bring them all together around a problem was way more significant than anyone thought. And as I've grown with it and started looking and trying to figure out why, one of the things that's really come to, by the way, as soon as I read the book, I went out and joined like 5 different communities. I worked Quirky and like Top Coder and all these different ones, just to understand, why are people doing this? How does this work? I read Clay Shirky's book, Cognitive Surplus, and just trying to wrap my head around it, right? And what I find is that these crowds are just amazing. They can do things that you never thought they could do. And we started, eventually I was able to start doing that in my professional job as well. And what we kept finding was there were no downsides, and the kinds of things you could do with a crowdsourcing competition were, kind of limitless. And that we were finding that by doing these, we were actually including people that had always wanted to be part of the conversation, but had always been excluded, right? And so they weren't doing it for the money. They weren't doing it for the prestige even. They just wanted the experience. They wanted to contribute. And that was a real eye-opener for me. And it turns out it got me looking at innovation, and it turns out innovation is a very personable thing. It's very personal, I should say. It's all about vulnerability and people being able to put their ideas out there without fear of somebody laughing at them, right? Which is kind of what happens in almost every organization that's trying to kind of do operations or product sales or that kind of thing, because innovation comes sideways to those things, right? So when people try to do that stuff, they get shut down. But innovation is one of these things that everyone loves to do. And it's very demoralizing when somebody shuts you down, whether they laugh at you or tell you won't have time for that, doesn't really matter. And what we found out with crowdsourcing challenges is it was the one place people could put their crazy idea out there with 0 consequences if they failed. Where else in life can you put your crazy idea out there with the chance of it getting selected if it's good enough, but not get a bad grade for it, not be persecuted at your company for wasting time or money. And I started meeting people who were researchers and were working on, challenges where they had actually been doing research. And they said, I'm just glad I have a place where I can put my idea, because my boss would never have let me go down this line of inquiry, because they have a safe, risk-free budget type of environment. And where does the innovation lie? Well, it lies out here in the risky stuff. It lies in failure. Innovation, open source challenges, open innovation challenges basically allow you to get massive parallel failure and a few successes. And when we think we're wasting people's time, remember, they're all volunteers. They're all doing this for their own reasons and understand the risks. Now, freelancing is different. And in fact, I just found freelancing mainly because I was using crowdsourcing sites that had challenges like freelancer.com. Yeah. But then I looked, and their core was not doing prize challenges. They were just simply using prize challenges to build the freelancer's reputation, so they had kind of a portfolio to show, so that when they go to do freelancing, they had something to kind of say, hey, this is what I can do. But they're there to be matched with work. And one of the things I tell people is the real underlying technology here are platforms that connect people and match them with something, right? And in this case, matching people with problems that they can solve. And effectively for the client, you're matching a solution to a problem, right? Just like Uber matches a driver to somebody who needs a ride, and Airbnb matches a person with a room to spare with somebody who wants to stay somewhere. That's the same thing we're doing here, except the algorithm we're using is prizes, and we're putting a prize out there. And if we do it right, it's an incentive that it includes gold, guts, glory, and good. Those are the 4 crowdsourcing incentives, right? And we're wanting to do that to bring people in to participate in solving a hard problem. However, freelancing is people trying to do work, and they're being matched work to worker, right? And so sometimes you need innovation. There's other things about that, but you're not trying to get 5,000 brains thinking about something to solve a hard problem. You're trying, and you're really looking, that's a discovery mechanism, right? Crowdsourcing challenges are discovering new technologies, new ideas, novel concepts that often from people who never would actually go and follow up and build that thing, right? They just have the idea. They've got a day job. They've got something. Freelancing is different. People make a living or make extra money or whatever with freelance, which is actually an interesting topic in and of itself, right? Is the fact that the gig economy has allowed kind of part-time people and people who have a living taken care of start to kind of tread on areas where freelancers are trying to make a living. And, what do you do with that? It's wonderful for the marketplace, but it's kind of crappy for the freelancers. But when you're talking about fairness, when you're employing freelancers, they give you lots of flexibility, right? You don't have to hire and fire them in the same way. You can still make relationships with them, go back to them over and over. You can use them once and never see them again. You can get whole groups of them together. And there are constraints about it. But what you want to do if you're using freelance, you want to pay them fairly. You want to pay them on time. You want to make sure you treat them just like you treat anyone else. Balaji Bandili at Deloitte actually has a system in place when people go to find team members that masks whether those people are full-time Deloitte, whether they're contractors, or whether they're freelancers, because people are biased and they think, well, they can't possibly do this work. Taskification and work is amazingly efficient with freelance labor because you can find exactly the skill you need for that exact task and get it done. And maybe you go back to them because you've established a relationship, but you can kind of right size your amount of work you're getting with what you need, right? And if you look at the 8 days a week, I can get this 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. See, I've been out of it too long. No, when you're looking at full-time employment, it's a very inefficient model. There's stats out there that say that the employees are only about 37% efficient. 37. 3 out of every 8 hours a day is when they really get work done. And it's not because they're lazy. It's we fill their days with wasteful meetings and a bunch of emails and just a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't actually cause productivity, right? Whereas freelancers, you don't have to capture all of their time and monitor everything they do just to get what you need, right? Which is what full-time employees have to do. They have to go into the office often. Now we've got some remote, but everybody's freaking out about that. But you've got to direct everything they do. You've got to develop them. You've got to kind of manage them. And you have HR folks, you have security guards, you have IT, all supporting these people. Yeah. A freelancer still has to have some of that, but largely they come, they do the job, and they go home. And they have a flexibility where they're not bound to one industry in one location. So they have a whole global marketplace. And a lot of these platforms are matching global work to global freelancers. And so I live in Houston, where the oil industry every once in a while will just tank and everyone gets laid off. A freelancer that's really built up a portfolio and is using these platforms to find and match work, they have access to all industries all around the world. And so when I look at kind of the trends in the world where automation is laying off a bunch of people, what I really see is the world has changed to where the complexity and pace of change and the tsunami of technology is really breaking that old model of full-time, 40-hour-a-week employees. And you can't recruit and you retain your way out of all of that because it's just coming too fast. And you can't really re-educate your accountants to be data scientists or cybersecurity folks, right? Because they don't want to do that. Like maybe 1% will do that. So what do, right? Because you either have to lay off people and hire the latest and greatest so you can stay competitive, or you kind of don't adopt the latest and greatest and become non-competitive, but then end up laying everyone off. And it's a real conundrum. But if you look over to this, and this is one of the things I noticed and got me really interested when we were doing open innovation, I started seeing these open talent, these freelance kind of groups where it's literally a community where you join and people get a job posting and they try to match you to that work and they go and do it. That's freelancing, right? That's the gig economy. That's what open talent is. What's fascinating is freelancers upskill at rates much higher than full-time employees. Well, what's the secret to a rapidly changing technical world? Upskilling and lifelong learning. And the ability to be agile in the needs of the workplace and the workforce. So as all of these companies are formed, the World Economic Forum had a study in 2020 that said that 85 million jobs were going away, but technology was going to create 97 million. So 12 million more jobs are being created. The only issue there is getting people that used to know how to do the jobs that are going away to learn how to do the jobs that are coming. And that's across blue collar and white collar now. And so we need a whole nother construct. And I actually was really depressed by all of that for a long time until I came across the gig economy and freelancing and this independent worker movement of open talent. Because now I can see, the world is just adapting to this faster pace. And they're able to now take on the agility that's needed. The only folks that are lagging are businesses who still are operating like they have for 120 years, right, or more. And so they still have these old mindsets, which still work, day to day. It's hard to see how they're not working until you see the disruption that we see coming, right? And it's here, right? Just watch the wildfire that is ChatGPT and generative AI, right? So I think I answered your question somewhere in there, but I don't know.
Yeah. So Steve, this is the best part. This is what I love. So in the background, I'm creating this card, of basically what some people are paying, what, $300K to get to Harvard MBA right now. And I'm able to probably learn more in an hour with you and just have my little notes here. But so I think the way you put it, which was, I hadn't heard this way yet. So when you said crowdsourcing, what you were discussing was actually, or what you referring to was, it's best in the discovery stage. And it's best to enable anyone to compete. And the reason that people are doing that is gold, glutz, glory, and good. And it's literally, hey, I would like to compete in something, and a hierarchical corporate structure simply, not the fault of the corporation, but simply doesn't allow it. And so crowdsourcing is great at discovery. Now, freelance, the way you didn't explicitly say it, but the way I read it was, it's the execution to scale. So it's, let's discover brilliance. Okay, crowdsourcing and a challenge model. And now let's execute on a long-term strategy and vision where the variance is quite low. We just need to execute now. So the idea is set. We know pretty much where we're going. It's just time to execute. So time to bring in a freelance. And you're gonna say something?
Well, it's that fit to work, right? It's the same thing that companies have done forever, right? They get ready to start a project and they're like, okay, who's going to be the best team to put together? And they pick Sally because she's got this background, and George because he's got this background. And that's great, except that pool of talent is very, very small compared to the global open talent marketplace. So you could potentially be getting someone who is way more qualified to help with that project. And what's cool is you can mix and match these things. You can actually have teams of half freelancers and half full-time if you want. But it is that, like you say, work to scale, trying to actually get the manpower, the labor that you need to get something done. And these days, you really want to be tapping into people with the latest and greatest skills. And here's the funny thing. Open talent, the gig marketplace, almost always has the latest and greatest skills available. Whereas in a company, in an organization that recruits and retains, you almost never can get the latest and greatest, because as soon as you hire them, in most cases, they stop being cutting edge, right? You're not pulling them away from that cutting edge, and they're going to preach and execute that version that was the cutting edge the day they started. But most organizations don't actually keep people on the cutting edge. And so there's this delay and decay that happens with workers in a full-time environment because they're executing, right? They're no longer on that cutting edge. Now, that's a generalization. There are some exceptions to that. But by and far, this idea that just thinking about hiring, right? The traditional way to hire is look for people in a 20-mile radius of where your office building is. And that's the pool of people, or the pool of people you can convince to move into that circle. Well, compare that to the globe. And we have, 7, almost 8 billion people on this planet, which, by the way, is double what it was when I was younger, right? Not even when I was born, just when I was younger. I don't know if that just says more about my age or the world, but the point is, there are so many people, and what people forget is the entire world has gotten smarter in the last 20 years. The number of kids that have come out of secondary school has doubled 2.5 times, 2.5 times as many secondary school graduates worldwide in the last 20 years. Think about that for a second. It's huge. One of the things I talk about a lot whenever I talk is that we now have such better equipment to go and innovate with. 3D printing, CRISPR, machine learning, data science, API, software, robotics, all very accessible to everyone. And we're better educated than ever before. And yet, if you look, the number of scientists on this planet right now, there are 9 times as many than ever lived on the planet before combined. 90% of all scientists that have ever lived on planet Earth are alive today with better equipment, better starting knowledge, and are combining these technologies in ways that are fascinating. Um, if you think you can maintain on your team the best and the brightest, let me ask one question. If quantum sensing was going to make your next product 100 times better than anything before it, how many people on your team even understand what quantum sensing is? Right?
Yeah.
And quantum sensing has a niche of where it's going to be used, but it's got a lot more niches than people realize. And that's my point, is there's so many of these technology DAOs, right? Decentralized autonomous organizations. There's an entire ecosystem of DAOs that are blockchain based stacks that are free to start. They're probably what new organizations are going to be started with. And yet, how many people even understand what a DAO is? Most of the organizations that are about to be disruptive in the next 5 to 10 years are blind to everything that's going on around them. And they're just assuming, oh, it's a fad, it's a cycle. We're seeing so many advances right now that require expertise and knowledge. So, some of the projects I've worked on, one of the main things we do is just bring in a series of people to bring us up to speed on all the craziness, because I better know at least something about this stuff if I hope to remain competitive in the business world.
It kind of reminds me of the old model of innovation. And this is me using my Silicon Valley background. But the old model of innovation was you take a trip down to Palo Alto and you get an executive briefing about where the future is going. And that was, how to stay above the trends. Now, what I really want to get your take on, because what's so tough about this industry is tangible case studies in a way that moves the needle, but not too far because it can't be too radical, right? What I mean by that is, we can't get into the NFT situation where someone goes, wow, look at this incredible innovation. It's called an NFT. And some people are on the sidelines going, this is total crap. And then it comes out as total crap. But our industry has been so much more, that's kind of boring. It's not too innovative. But then you look and you go, oh my God, 33% growth year over year and 100K plus freelancers. Whoa, that's not incremental. That is sexy. But so in your eyes, what is the first principle of what we're solving? Because to me, what I'm hearing you saying is we're going away from full-time employment. And it sounds basic, but it really, when hearing you talk, to me, it sounds like that's the simplest first principle to latch onto. What would you say?
Yeah. So I would say I like to view it less of going away from full-time employing and more going towards agile organizational kind of constructs. How can your organization adapt to this, what I call a tsunami of technology that is coming at an ever increasing rate, right? That's what's breaking things. And so you've got to be agile. You've got to deal with complexity. There's more of this technology you got to surf through. You've got to understand it. And so how do you do that as an organization? And, at the heart of all of this is digital, right? Digital transformation. If you're not digitally transformed by now, you're probably going away soon because, again, digital natives are about to take over and they can execute at a much higher rate than anyone because they know what automated workflows are. They know what the digital systems can bring. They're set up so that, if you think about it for a second, the companies that didn't actually do the digital transformation are now trying to play catch up.
Yeah.
They basically are missing out right now on all of the data science because they don't have a place that all that data lives that everyone can access. And so that they don't actually know how to take advantage of Internet of Things, which is what's going to actually bring a lot of that data in, because they actually don't have the infrastructure to plug all that into, because they're still thinking digital transformation is Office 365, right? And you're like, there's so much more, and you guys aren't, you're not actually automating your entire workflow from the ground up. You're not starting, and a lot of companies can't, right? I mean, it's just, they have so much infrastructure. I don't want to be harsh on traditional organizations. I would hate to be a CEO right now, because depending on what your margins are of your profits, you probably can't afford to actually stay competitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what those folks do, because you can tell them, hey, go do open innovation or go finish your digital transformation. But if they're working with this much budget and it takes this much budget to do that, they're kind of chasing, it's almost like, hey, just surf as long as you can, because your organization's going to die. And I don't know how to say that in a way that isn't alarmist and the rest. So I do think the transition's going. So one of the things I would look at is a trend line that is the average lifespan of organizations, of companies, right? And I think you've probably seen this.
Oh, yeah.
Over the last 100 years, the S&P 500 companies' average lifespan has gone from almost 100 years ago, back in the 1930s. It's like 14 years now. And it's like looking at Moore's Law in reverse. And there are now companies that are likely going to exist for a year or two and go away. And that's actually going to be okay. They're going to be okay with that, because they're going to be all digital, be built on a framework. It's going to meet a need. Maybe that need is only going to last for 2 years, and then they're going to go away. And there's not going to be all this carnage when they do, because they're not operating with a bunch of assets and full-time employees they got to lay off and all this kind of stuff. They're built on a digital infrastructure using contingent labor that they bring in from around everywhere. It's not to say that they don't still form teams and relationships and build culture. It's just they're doing it in a way that is agile.
Yep.
And they don't have any dispersions that this is going to be something that's going to last for 100 years, because they just see what's going on around them. It's likely those companies will actually have the framework to transform into something new, because they're not trying to hold on to something that has outlived its usefulness. So part of it's a mindset, right? And here's the problem right now, in even having the conversation, is all of this is additive. It's not like there's this sliding window where everything changes for everyone all at the same time. So there are still mom and pop shops out there that have a little cash box, and they do everything in cash and do things the way it's been done for 50 to 100 years, and they still exist. And when they see all this stuff, they're like, this doesn't affect me. But it does, right? Talk to the cab drivers in New York City when Uber came through. Talk to that. You can make an endless list now, because we're seeing just the displacement. I think, and everyone knows the next displacement is because of all the generative AI stuff. But there's a whole lot of opportunity there too. So there's definitely something about the talent cloud that is key to all of this, because I think it is the flexibility that the world needs in order to make these transitions. Does everyone have to be in the gig economy? No, I don't think so. I don't think it'll be that way ever. I do think that it's breaking a paradigm that for many, many years, businesses and organizations have felt like they need to kind of own the people, right? We have to bring you in. You have to sit in front of us. You can't leave until we tell it's okay. You can't share any ideas outside of this. There's very strict rules about being part of a company. And hey, by the way, come in this weekend or work this holiday, or we have to grant you permission to go live your life. And I think all of that led to Dilbert cartoons and the movie Office Space, right? And all that. And if you watch those, there's a seriousness to that. People realize that business goals, what businesses are trying to do, are not the same as what people are trying to do. There's an overlap where people get to do the things they love and they get to do that. And what I'm seeing in the freelance world, in the open talent world, is more people are given the agency to pick what they want to do that work, and then go find more work they want to do. And companies getting just the right folks who are willing and want to do the work they have. In a fixed labor pool, you're making people do things they don't want to do. And I really think in 20 years or some time frame, there's going to be a lot of people that look back on the last couple hundred years and say, why did we think it was okay for all practical purposes for companies to own people's time and their agency, right? I mean, it's most people will tell you they don't feel that they have agency to leave. Well, that's not freedom. That's not. And so to me, this paradigm is bringing some really good stuff with it, but it still takes hustle. Like, that's the thing. You get a free full-time job, you can kind of lay back and, hey, I'm still going to get a paycheck. I got to really screw up before they're going to get me. In the freelance world, you're always having to find your next gig. Now, there are gig platforms that are starting to actually kind of even some of that out and make sure you get, and there's, for certain skills, there's a queue of people trying to get those skills. And I think there's a leveling that's going to have to play out where all of that kind of evens out. And the big driver on the evening out is going to be upskilling and lifelong learning, right? And how that works out.
So you've said it a couple times, and I think this might be, I'm totally going to steal this, Steve. This might be like the catalyst / the straw that broke the camel's back is upskilling. And you've said it multiple times now. And so one of the most difficult things in our space and in general is to get a CEO to recognize that this needs to happen now and not in 6 months or a year. And that is the word I'm going to start using. Now, we're going to try something that we've never tried before. And that is, so at the end of each episode, we do a rocket round, and it's just purely fun. I'm going to do a hybrid in terms of I'm going to seed some of the rocket round questions to feed to a bigger one. So I'm going to start by, what is your favorite hangout spot in Houston?
My favorite hangout spot in Houston, probably Figo Sugo. It's a little Italian place over near Market Square that just has this amazing pasta, and the chef Chris is there. He's amazing, and we just have a great time hanging out.
I love. Okay, so we're there. How do you pronounce it? Figo Sugo.
Figo Sugo. It means awesome sauce in Italian, at least according to Chris.
Okay, so we're there. What is your drink of choice and your meal of choice?
For that place, it's gonna be, probably some red wine, probably a Merlot, and he has I go back and forth between his spaghetti and meatballs and his vodka chicken pasta. So anything you get there's just amazing. So
okay, now I want you to imagine end of dinner. We even had some dessert. Now, when you get up, before you can leave the restaurant, I need you to do one thing, and it's going to be 2 questions. I need you to walk to every single table with someone who's over the age of 45. And the first thing I need you to ask them is, what do you think if your kid became a full-time freelancer? That's the first question. And the second thing is, I want you to now identify all the tables of people that look like executives. And I want you to ask them, how come your company isn't over half freelancers? So let's start with the are you okay if you're, or don't even ask if you're okay. Just say, hey, heard your kid's a full-time freelancer. Let's start with, what's the reaction going to be? What's the overwhelming sentiment?
Yeah, you know it, right? Which is, oh, they couldn't get a real-time job. They couldn't get a real job. I'm so sorry, right? I mean, that's the cultural bias right there, right? And what people fail to realize is how many high-end freelancers are making a lot of money and are really happy because they have the ability to work anywhere and do anything they want. And they see themselves as independent, right? And see themselves as having a lot more flexibility. So what's the next one? Sorry.
Okay. The next one is now
the C.
only people that look like executives. Okay. And I want you to profile. I want, looking a
why
little
is not half of
stressed.
your
Yeah. Looking a little stressed, looking a little tired, probably have had 3 glasses of wine because they're finally out of work. But I want you to ask them, why isn't over half your company freelancers?
Yeah. Well, and I'm simulating their response, right? Which is, what are you even talking about? We use freelancers for little things, but we have to have those people. What if they steal our intellectual property? What if they, what if they trash us? What if they? And it's so funny because I get that even with open innovation, people are really worried about all this. And you're like, look, one, intellectual property is changing so fast that if you're patenting every single thing you're doing, you're wasting your time. There's still things you have to protect. Don't get me wrong. 2, if you think that freelancers that sign an NDA are any less loyal and law-abiding citizens than your employees, who, by the way, you background checked 10 years ago and haven't checked on since, and probably don't even realize they have an NDA that they should be protecting, and is usually the way companies leak information. Like, it's just bias, right? And so I think most companies and executives, I think for one, don't really understand what's happening out there. They hear complaints from HR that they can't find labor. It's so fascinating. There's a labor shortage and there's hiring freezes at the same time.
Yep.
But it makes total sense if you take a step back and you think, we're not in a hiring crisis of people not being available or too many people being available. We're in a hiring crisis of knowledge and skills. And people can't get the skills they need, and they're still in that recruit and retain model, right? And if you're in a recruit and retain model and you're constantly trying to hire the latest and greatest, you're going to have a hiring freeze in about a month, because you're going to find people, not enough of them, but you're not offboarding anyone. So you're just building a bigger bubble, and you're hoping, because you're loyal to your employees, you love your employees, you want them to have a job, but you've got 32 accountants, and that in the next 2 years you're going to need 5. And you aren't even willing to have that conversation with those other 20 some odd to say, you either need to learn cybersecurity, data science, or programming, or leave. And they're not having those conversations, and so they're all just not upgrading to the next system, so they'll still need 32 people. Like it's kind of this vicious cycle. So that's
you just put it, and this is the last kind of point, but you just put a thought into my head that I hadn't thought of before, related to the upscaling, and that is it's actually probably one of the best protection mechanisms to hire a freelancer over a full-time. Not every time, right? But I would argue most circumstances. And the reason I said is because, as a CEO, the worst conversation I ever have to have is firing someone that doesn't deserve it. I'll be honest, Steve, if someone does deserve it, I don't care. I don't feel that bad. But if someone, if business conditions change, like that there's nothing worse in life. Now, with that said, in hiring freelancers, I'm going to give you the example of the guy that's editing this podcast. So he was doing the in-person support for Nashville's rising artists. COVID happens, and he has to adjust to doing virtual podcasting. Now, this guy is the shit, and we get along personality extremely well. But what I think we really, really, really fully align on is, hey, you as a freelancer, I know you're upskilling and you're learning stuff before I ever will. And so I doubt there's ever going to have to be a conversation of, listen, man, the tech you're using is really old and we need to adapt to someone better. He's going to know before I do. And there's been multiple cases where he's looked out for us in ways that I've
Wow.
never seen an employee. So you
I
had
that's
me think
awesome.
of
I
the
love
way
that.
it's the best way to.
Well, here's the thing. I think in the upskilling regime, freelancing is a secret in two different ways. If you're a company and you're like, I don't know if I want to do this. Okay, go out and bring some freelancers into your teams. Not a lot, but some high skills, right? And just bring them in, and your people will learn from them, right? So you can get more upskilling by bringing in freelancers, but then it even gets better. You want a free training program or free upskilling? Because most companies have an average training budget of about $1,000 per person per year for training, and that's mostly compliance. It's not even upskilling, right? So they can't afford to do, if you look at the World Economic Forum report, they're talking something like half of people's skills have to be redone, and it's something like 6 months average training or something. That's a crazy cost, right?
Yeah.
Go make an agreement with each employee that you want upskilled and say, hey, look, I want you to be out there learning the latest and greatest and finding stuff that's really going to help us. I want you to take 5 to 10% of your time, or just give them approval to do it free time, and go to these, these open innovation and open talent sites, sign up. I don't care which one you do, and then come back in 6 months or a month or whatever and tell me what you learned. And if you win a prize, $100,000 prize, you get to keep it. If you make money at freelancing, you get to keep it. It's a little side gig. You can use office equipment. Just don't give away our IP. Don't let anyone have access to our stuff. Kind of like the way we now have rules and agreements for people to remote work that we didn't used to. They used to do it anyway, and we had all sorts of problems, right? Do that with your folks. And everybody's like, well, they're going to leave. Well, guess what? If they're going to leave because of that, they're going to leave anyway.
Yep.
They're going to likely stay because you just gave them a bump in their income. You gave them a raise and gave them the ability to upskill, and you told them it was all right. And they have the stability of that still full-time job. And so what if you gave away 10%? They're only productive 37% of the time.
Yep. No, it's incredible. So okay, Steve, we're gonna do rock around, and you're gonna get a question that this is like so selfishly me just learning from you. But the first question, and the rules for rock around is you have less than 17 seconds to answer each question. But the first one, what are you most proud of? And it can be anything from, you raised a great dog, raised some great kids, had this happen in your job. But I'm going to leave it as open as you want. Steve, what in your 30 plus year career, what are you most proud of?
Well, see, you said career, so that's going to take me at a different direction. I was going to say, I'm proud of my family. Now, I have an amazing wife and amazing daughters that are all just beautiful people inside and out. And they're so much better than I am. It's really amazing. And I'm really, really proud of everything they've become. And I can tell the impact they're going to make is tremendous. I'm all about balance. So I'm very proud that I have a lot of balance in my life. I play in a big band. I'm very active in our church. I work hard. I have a lot of social things I like to do, and I travel and whatnot. But balance is really important, and the fact that in my day job I run an amazing team, but I don't require anyone to work past what we've agreed on, right? And I try to respect people's lives. I think that's all of that. I'm very proud that I can at least try to spread balance and make people love what they do. I think that's the biggest gift anyone can get, is to be able to be permitted, which is crazy. I have to even say permitted to love what they do, and not basically be have that taken from you because of all the other stuff that is thrown at you. So that
was beautiful. So okay, question number 2. You already told me about your Italian place, but let's say tonight or tomorrow night. What's the activity choice?
Tonight or tomorrow night? my wife and I moved downtown Houston just a little less than 2 years ago, and we go out all the time now. It's great. We this soccer game, Astros. All this like 2 or 3 blocks from me, and live music, a lot of bars and in the restaurants, and that we're across the street from Discovery Green, which is this amazing park that has all these really cool events. So the only thing slowing me down right now is it's 104 today in Houston Fahrenheit, and so I don't get out quite as much as I wanted to. So I'll have to see. My wife is moving my daughter into an apartment at UT today and yesterday, and so when she gets back, we'll probably do whatever she wants to do. That usually serves me really well to do whatever she.
There's the life advice right there. I love it. I gotta ask, Astros, who's the favorite player?
Yeah,
that shortstop, I'm not gonna lie, Steve, that just seems like a nice person. So I'm such a nice guy.
No, he's super nice. He's probably my favorite. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, I love it. All right, favorite book. This for you is going to be a loaded question. Actually, most people
favorite book. I have so many favorite books. So many. I should probably plug John's book, right? It's coming out here in a few weeks.
You were saying agile. Oh, John. Yeah.
John Windsor. There's so many great books out there. Some that I think, look, it's funny. It's old, but it kind of got me started on a path that I really value a lot, and that's the 7 Habits book that, can't even think of his name. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That book, even though it's dated, it's a book to live, kind of restructure your life and figure out what's important.
I love it. Okay, you have 2 more questions left, and this one is definitely uniquely you. So, all right. I grew up in a little beach town. A lot of people had boats. Everyone names their boat, right? You, my friend, you're not going to name a boat. You're going to name a rocket. What would you name your rocket?
Zippy.
You were ready. Have you been asked that before?
No, I just like the word zippy.
Was that like your NASA interview question?
I think that's the name of my robot vacuum is Zippy.
That is so funny. All right, Steve, well, I thought that would be the question that took a while, but nope, we are going to breeze over that. Last question is favorite animal and why?
Favorite animal and why? Oh, that's a tough one. I would say,
Can I please guess?
Go ahead.
Oh, man. I'm guessing it's going to be an eagle or a golden retriever.
It was an eagle, yeah. Because I live in I'm like looking at a 31-story building here, or 31st floor, and I get these big, hawks and condors, and we don't get eagles in Houston, but I'm a big flying dreamer kind of guy, so yeah.
I love it. Okay. Well, Steve, this has been more than a blast. Where can our listeners find you?
Usually the best place to find me is LinkedIn. It's pretty easy. Steve Rader. There actually are a lot of Steve Raders, but it's actually pretty easy to find me.
Perfect. Steve, thank you so much for hopping on.
Yeah, this was great. It's a blast. Thanks a lot.